The psychology behind what makes people kill has always been something that really interested me. I've always wanted to know, is it something that people are born with? Does something make them snap? Is it all by accident? Today I wanted to dive in to the history and information of the JonBenet Ramsey case. This was a case that definitely shocked America, and the country was left reeling over the loss of this very sweet and innocent child. JonBenet was born in Atlanta, Georgia on August 6, 1990 to Patricia and John Ramsey. JonBenet was the second child, and she had an older brother named Burke. JonBenet was named after her father, John Bennett Ramsey, and her middle name was Patricia after her mother. While her education was unfortunately short-lived, JonBenet attended kindergarten at High Peaks Elementary School in Boulder, Colorado. JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, was an extremely successful businessman with a company called Access Graphics. Access Graphics was a computer system company which later on became a part of Lockheed Martin. The Access Graphics headquarters were located in Boulder, Colorado, which is where the family relocated to in 1991. JonBenet's mother, Patricia Ramsey, was married to John at the young age of 23. As a young woman, Patsy Ramsey found a lot of success being a pageant queen, and in 1977 she was crowned Miss West Virginia. Patsy graduated college with a bachelor's degree in journalism from West Virginia University. In 1987, she had Burke, her eldest child, and then a few years later had JonBenet. JonBenet's older brother, Burke, was born on January 27, 1987. He was just 9 years old when his sister was tragically murdered. Now, Burke is 32 years old and he works as a software developer. He hasn't done much speaking out on his sister's murder save for a few high-profile interviews, one of these being with Dr. Phil. Burke's interview with Dr. Phil was to honor the 20th anniversary of JonBenet's murder and to break his silence on the matter. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Patsy discovered that her daughter had gone missing. After finding an extensive ransom note, Patsy called the police at 5:52 a.m. While the ransom note warned against calling the police and friends, Patsy went ahead and made these calls. The police showed up within 3 minutes of the call. They conducted an initial search of the house and they did not find any signs of forced entry at this time. One of the officers, Rick French, went into the basement to find a possible kidnapper's exit route. He happened upon a door secured with a wooden latch. He made the mistake of not looking behind the door. As French had explained, the exit route he was looking for ruled out any secured areas. What he did not know is that JonBenet lay murdered on the other side. Arrangements were made for ransom to be paid and a forensics team was sent to the house. The team believed JonBenet had been kidnapped and thus cordoned off her room to prevent any contamination. However, they didn't take care or precautions for the rest of the house, which led to a breach of evidence.
And people were streaming through that house. They were in the kitchen, they were in the living room.
They're all talking, they're passing the ransom note around.
The police should have secured that scene by telling everybody, get out, I'm sorry this is a crime scene.
Virtually anyone was permitted to come and go as they pleased from the crime scene, so evidence was compromised. The ransom note was the centerpiece of this crime. Patsy discovered JonBenet was missing after reading a ransom note. It was 2.5 pages, handwritten, and contained some very eerie and suspicious instructions. Among many demands for JonBenet's safe return was the demand for $118,000. This just so happened to be the same amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus. John Ramsey explained this to the police, which most likely meant that somebody who knew this information was involved in the crime. Something noted by officials and the general public alike was that this ransom note was long, unusually long as a matter of fact.
Are there any other ransom notes that are this length?
There are the ransom notes, but there's nothing that comes anywhere close to this. This reads like a Stephen King novelette, all within about 3 pages.
Even stranger, someone took the time to write it inside the Ramsey home.
A common opinion among many interviewees in casting JonBenet is that no one in a hurry would have sat down at the scene of a crime they committed to write this ransom note.
Fitzgerald's conclusion? The letter was a ruse, part of a deliberate staging of the crime scene.
What are the kind of people that have to employ staging?
They are the kinds of people that would be considered likely suspects in a crime.
Additionally, the note was written from a pen and paper pad found in the Ramsey home. Because of these circumstances, signs pointed to Patsy Ramsey. These indications never led to anything definitive officially, but Patsy has always been a primary suspect in the public's opinion. Several professionals examined the note, including Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist. Baden said that in all of his 60 years of experience, he has never seen a note like this one. He did not believe it was written by an outsider. The federal court ended up ruling it to be highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note. The court cited several certified experts in coming to this ruling. On the night JonBenét was murdered, only her immediate family was in the home: John, Patsy, and Burke. Despite searching that morning, nothing initially was found. It was only at 1 p.m. that a horrific discovery was made. Detective Arndt directed John and a family friend to further search the house to see if anything was out of place. Starting in the basement, it didn't take long for John to open the door that Officer French did not. He found his daughter lying dead on the basement floor. JonBenét's mouth was duct taped shut, her wrists and neck bound by a nylon cord. She was covered in her favorite white blanket. John Ramsey acted hastily, picking JonBenét up to take her body upstairs. This led to further crime scene contamination, and very critical forensic evidence was ruined. In my opinion, this is one of the reasons why they have still not solved this case. According to the autopsy, JonBenét was killed as a result of strangulation and a skull fracture. Officially, the cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. Sexual assault was not ruled out, and there was trauma to various parts of her body. Her death was ruled a homicide. The weapon used to murder JonBenét was composed of a nylon cord and a broken paintbrush. The autopsy revealed that JonBenét may have consumed pineapple a few hours before her death. However, neither John nor Patsy remember feeding this to her. Burke Ramsey's fingerprints were found on the bowl, but the Ramseys have always said Burke slept through the night and was awakened after police arrived. Many potential suspects were identified by several sources, including experts, commentators, and the Ramseys. However, in the initial investigations, the police solely focused on John and Patsy Ramsey. By October 1997, there were more than 1,600 people of interest. Many errors caused rifts in the overall resolution of the case. As previously mentioned, evidence was lost and contaminated. The technical staff on the investigation were inexperienced. Evidence was shared, and interviews were delayed. There were some issues initially when bringing the case to court. With the two lead investigators, Lou Smith and Steve Thomas, things were going awry. Both resigned. Smith because he felt they overlooked the intruder theory too prematurely, and Thomas because he felt that the DA interfered too much and had a very unsupportive nature towards police investigation. Colorado Governor Roy Romer named Michael Cain as a special prosecutor. Cain initiated a grand jury which was convened on September 15, 1998. In 1999, the Boulder grand jury made the vote to indict John and Patsy for their role in the murder of JonBenét. But Boulder's DA, Alex Hunter, decided not to charge them because there was insufficient evidence.
We do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time.
When this was dropped, the Ramseys moved back to Atlanta to get out of the public eye, and they ended up releasing a memoir in 2001. In 2006, Patsy Ramsey lost her battle with ovarian cancer. John Ramsey claimed that throughout all of this, he lost multi-million dollars worth of fortune. When Burke came forward to break his 20-year silence on Dr. Phil, he brought no new evidence. Many state that Burke had odd mannerisms on Dr. Phil. Others just chalk it up to him being nervous or uncomfortable with being interviewed. Here's what he had to say about his lost loved ones, his mother, grandmother, and his little sister whose life was cut far too short.
Do you feel like JonBenét's watching over you now?
Yeah, and my mom and my grandma.
Do you think your mom and JonBenét are together again?
Yeah. Sometimes I would talk to her and just be like,
what would you say?
You know.
When you talk to her, what would you say?
Oh, just like if there's some important thing I was doing, be like, hey, thanks for looking out for me, or hope you're looking out for me. Or, hope you're having fun up there because I'm taking some tests, or, like I wish I was up there right now,
It isn't always easy to give up without any answers. As a result, there are several whodunit theories about this case. One of the most popular theories about this case is that Patsy Ramsey killed JonBenét. JonBenét was a bedwetter, and some say that this potentially infuriated Patsy Ramsey. Some say that in a fit of rage, Patsy struck down JonBenét and strangled her to cover it up. However, Patsy does not have a known history of uncontrolled anger. Some believe there was a jealousy element from Patsy, as she had been a beauty queen herself. JonBenét was finding success in the pageant world, and maybe her mom didn't like that. Another popular theory is that Burke actually struck down and killed JonBenét using a flashlight, and this is based on the evidence of head trauma. Another theory suggests that an intruder murdered JonBenét. Early suspects for this theory include Bill McReynolds, Linda Hoffman Pugh, and a man named Michael Helgoth. Bill McReynolds was actually a man who played Santa Claus, and Linda Hoffman Pugh had been a former housekeeper. And shortly after JonBenét was murdered, Michael Helgoth committed suicide. Hundreds of tests were performed to match the DNA that was found during JonBenét's autopsy. On the night JonBenét was murdered, 2 windows were left ajar, 1 door was left unlocked, and there had been a broken window in the basement which happened previously. Lou Smith, one of the primary investigators in the beginning, believed that an intruder might have shocked JonBenét with a stun gun and taken her body downstairs. However, this theory has been sort of debunked because of that basement area being undisturbed. There were cobwebs, there was dust, and the bushes around that broken window were unmoved. Another rather chilling theory is that JonBenét was murdered by a pedophile. A false confession made by a man named John Mark Carr was initially a lead. Carr was a 41-year-old elementary school teacher. In 2006, he was arrested for falsely confessing to the murder of JonBenét. Carr made claims of drugging, raping, and then accidentally killing JonBenét. Authorities claim there is no linking evidence between Carr and the crime scene. John Mark Carr provided only basic and well-known information in his confession. His claim that he drugged JonBenét was actually doubted because there was no evidence of drugs found in the autopsy. Additionally, Carr's DNA did not match the DNA that was found through the autopsy. So, what do I think about all this? I think that mistakes made during the investigation process really hindered us ever finding out who actually killed her. I don't think that it was her mom. I don't think that it was a family member, but I do think that it could have been an intruder. I do think that if they had followed proper techniques, then maybe we would have had a better chance of matching DNA. But it could have just been one of those things that we'll never find out who did it. Unfortunately, I think that we have to look at this case of how not to, as that officer had said, in casting JonBenét, and we just have to hope that something like this never happens again. Until next time, this is a case of cold-blooded killing and chilling conspiracies.